Shadows of Deception. Chapter 2. Web of Deceit. Morning light filtered through the sheer curtains of Elena's bedroom, casting delicate patterns on the polished wooden floor. She hadn't slept. The events of the previous night played on an endless loop in her mind. The darkness, the vanished heirloom, the whispers of suspicion. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. "Come in," she called softly. Victoria entered, carrying a tray with tea and a plate of fresh fruit. "I thought you might need something to eat." Elena managed a weak smile. "Thank you, Tia." Victoria sat beside her on the plush chaise lounge. "Any news?" "Detective Mendez said he's following some leads, but nothing concrete yet." Elena sipped her tea, the warmth offering little comfort. Victoria placed a reassuring hand on her knee. "We'll find it. La Estrella has always found its way back to us." Elena looked up. "What do you mean?" Her aunt hesitated. "It's just, over the years, there have been attempts to steal it, but somehow it always returns." Before Elena could probe further, a commotion arose downstairs. Voices escalated, sharp and urgent. They exchanged a glance before hastening to the foyer. There, they found Alejandro and Miguel in a heated argument. "You think I had something to do with this?" Miguel's face was flushed with anger. Alejandro stood firm, his eyes cold. "I don't know what to think. You disappeared right after the blackout." "I was checking on the security systems, trying to help," Miguel retorted. Elena stepped forward. "What's going on?" Both men turned toward her. Alejandro spoke first. "Miguel was absent during the crucial moments last night." Miguel threw up his hands. "This is ridiculous. You're deflecting blame because you can't control your own family's affairs." "Enough!" Elena's voice echoed through the hall. "We won't resolve anything by turning on each other." Detective Mendez appeared at the doorway. "I agree with Elena. Personal conflicts will only hinder the investigation." Miguel shook his head in frustration. "I have nothing to hide. Question me all you want." Carlos nodded. "I intend to. Let's start with where you were during the blackout." As they moved into a side room, Isabella descended the staircase, her expression one of feigned innocence. "Trouble in paradise?" she mused. Elena shot her a warning look. "Not now, Isabella." Her sister shrugged. "Just making an observation. This engagement has certainly stirred up more than just excitement." Elena took a deep breath. "Do you have something to say?" Isabella smiled sweetly. "Only that perhaps you should be more careful about who you trust." Before Elena could respond, Alejandro approached. "I need to speak with you." She nodded, following him into the study. The room was lined with towering bookshelves and anchored by a massive mahogany desk. "I don't like how Miguel is acting," Alejandro began, closing the door behind them. "He's defensive, evasive." Elena leaned against the desk. "He's your business partner. Do you really think he'd jeopardize everything over a necklace?" He ran a hand through his hair. "I don't know. Lately he's been secretive. Financial reports aren't adding up. This could be connected." She studied his face. "Why didn't you tell me about these issues before?" "I didn't want to worry you," he admitted. She sighed. "Alejandro, we're supposed to share things with each other, especially if it affects our families." He reached out to take her hand. "You're right. I'm sorry." Just then, a knock interrupted them. Carlos poked his head in. "Elena, may I have a word?" Alejandro's jaw tightened. "We're in the middle of something." It's important, Carlos insisted. Elena pulled her hand away from Alejandro's. It's fine. I'll be right back. In the corridor, Carlos lowered his voice. I found something you need to see. He led her to a quiet corner of the garden, away from prying eyes and ears. From his pocket, he produced a small, ornate key. What's this? She asked. I found it near the back entrance where the security cameras conveniently malfunctioned during the blackout, he explained. It looks antique, possibly a key to a hidden compartment or a safe. Elena examined the key closely. It looks familiar. Carlos nodded. I thought so too. I believe it matches the style of the old desk in your father's study. Her eyes widened. But that desk hasn't been opened in years. Not since he passed away. Perhaps it's time we take a look, he suggested. They made their way to the study, ensuring they weren't followed. The room smelled of aged leather and faded memories. Elena approached the desk, running her fingers over the intricate carvings. Here, she said, pointing to a barely visible keyhole. Carlos inserted the key, and with a soft click, the lock disengaged. They opened the hidden compartment to reveal a stack of letters tied with a ribbon and a small ledger. Elena's hands trembled as she picked up the ledger. Flipping through the pages, she recognized her father's handwriting. These are financial records. Carlos peered over her shoulder. Look at these transactions. Large sums transferred to offshore accounts. Her brow furrowed. Why would he be moving money like this? Perhaps he was involved in something less than legal, Carlos suggested carefully. Elena shook her head. No, my father was an honest man. Then someone else has been using his accounts, Carlos reasoned. We need to dig deeper. Meanwhile, in another part of the estate, Victoria confronted Miguel. I know you're hiding something. He met her gaze evenly. And what makes you say that? She stepped closer. Because I recognize the signs. The late-night meetings. The evasive answers. You're in trouble, aren't you? Miguel's facade cracked for a moment. It's complicated. Uncomplicate it, she demanded. If you're endangering this family... I'm trying to protect them, he snapped. You have no idea what's at stake. Then enlighten me, she challenged. He glanced around nervously. Not here. Too many ears. Back in the study, Elena and Carlos continued to sift through the documents. A name kept recurring. Project Estrella. What is Project Estrella? Elena wondered aloud. Carlos's eyes narrowed. Estrella means star in Spanish, just like the necklace's name, La Estrella. A realization dawned on her. You think the necklace is connected to this project? Possibly. If the necklace is more than just a family heirloom, if it holds some kind of secret or value beyond its appearance, it could explain why someone would go to such lengths to steal it. Elena's mind raced. But who would know about this? And why now? Carlos looked at her intently. We need to be careful. Trust no one. She nodded slowly. Agreed. As they left the study, Isabella watched from the shadows, her eyes narrowing. She slipped away before they could notice her. Later that evening, Elena sought out Alejandro to discuss their findings. She found him in the guest house, speaking in hushed tones with Victoria. Am I interrupting? She asked, stepping inside. They both turned abruptly. No, of course not, Alejandro replied, though his expression suggested otherwise. Elena eyed them suspiciously. What's going on? Victoria forced a smile. We were just discussing security measures. Alejandro nodded. Yes, with everything that's happened, we need to ensure everyone's safety. Elena crossed her arms. I discovered something today. Something about my father's financial dealings. Victoria's face paled slightly. What did you find? Offshore accounts, large transfers, and something called Project Estrella, Elena revealed. Alejandro exchanged a glance with Victoria. Elena, it's complicated. She stepped forward. Stop saying that. I deserve to know the truth. Victoria sighed heavily. Very well. Your father was involved in a project that wasn't entirely above board. He was trying to protect the family legacy. What kind of project? Elena demanded. Alejandro hesitated. He was part of a group that dealt with rare artifacts, moving them discreetly. Elena's eyes widened. You mean smuggling? Victoria placed a hand on her arm. He believed it was for a greater good, preserving history from those who would misuse it. Why am I only hearing about this now? Elena asked, her voice shaking. We wanted to shield you, Alejandro explained, but it seems the past is catching up to us. Elena pulled away. I can't believe this. As she stormed out, she nearly collided with Isabella, who had been eavesdropping. Careful, sister, Isabella said with a sly smile. Not now, Isabella, Elena warned. Oh, but it's the perfect time, Isabella purred. Secrets have a way of unraveling, don't they? Elena glared at her. What do you know? More than you think, Isabella replied cryptically before sauntering down the hall. Feeling overwhelmed, Elena retreated to the sanctuary of the gardens. The moon cast a silvery light over the fountains and statues. She needed time to think, to process everything. Carlos found her sitting by the koi pond. Are you all right? She shook her head. My whole life feels like a lie. He sat beside her. Sometimes the truth is buried beneath layers of deception. She looked at him, tears welling in her eyes. I don't know who to trust anymore. He took her hand gently. You can trust me. Their eyes met, and for a moment, the weight of the world seemed to lift. But the moment was fleeting, interrupted by the distant sound of raised voices. What's happening now? Elena asked wearily. They hurried back to the main house to find Miguel being escorted out by security. This is outrageous, he shouted. You have no right. Alejandro stood at the top of the stairs. Until we can sort this out, you're not welcome here. Miguel locked eyes with Elena. You're making a mistake. All of you. As he was led away, Elena felt a pang of doubt. Was Miguel truly the villain, or just another pawn in a larger game?